Welcome to MCN, and today we have been riding Kawasaki's updated Z900. Now, this is essentially an update to the existing Z900 platform. So this is their sub-litre naked bike, and it goes up against some really stiff competition. In the same category, you've got the Street Triple R, you've got KTM's 990 Duke, you've got Yamaha's MT09, and you've also got Honda's CB1000 Hornet and CB1000 Hornet SB. So it's got some really stiff competition. We're going to sort of get into the price and how it sort of compares to the rivals a bit later on. But as a bit of a headline sort of figures as to what differences this bike has to the 24, it is essentially the same platform. So the engine is exactly the same, still an inline 4. It makes similar power and torque figures, just a tiny bit down on the previous model because it's Euro 5 Plus. But Kawasaki have made a few internal tweaks which they claim that they've done just to beef up the mid-range and also to increase the efficiency of the engine. They've also made a few little chassis tweaks, so it's got new radial mounted Nissin brakes, 4-piston Nissins. They've pulled the forks up through the yokes by 3mm, and they've also they put a little plate in the front of the chassis in order to increase the rigidity a little bit. They've also updated the electronic system, so it now comes with an IMU which powers cornering ABS, a better traction control system. It's got a new bigger TFT dash with a new software system. It now has connectivity, it has turn-by-turn navigation, and it also has voice activated commands, although it's currently in its beta phase. We didn't quite get a chance to test it today, but they did give us a little run through of what it looks like. It also comes on new Dunlop Sports Max Q5A tyres. Now, this is a bike that is £9,199 by Kawasaki. When you actually get to it and you put it on the road, it's just a shade under 9,400 quid. So to put that into perspective, the Triumph Street Triple R is 10,095 quid, makes a bit less power, makes a little bit less torque as well. Yamaha's MT09 is over £10,100, that's a triple. That makes less power again and a little bit less torque. But then you have the CB1000 Hornet. Now that's very cheap. That's under 9 grand, and it's under 10 grand for the SP. When you're looking at that, that's 1000cc. So not only do you get more power and more torque, but on UK PCP deals, where this comes in for about a 25% deposit, this comes in at £156 a month. The Hornet sets you back £112.58. So this has some big boots to fill. So we've done about 150 kilometres today, some windy stuff, some really tight and nadgery stuff. When we left earlier, it was raining. When we left earlier, the roads were quite wet, it was quite cold, and then it dried out. And I have to say, having ridden the previous generation of the Z900, the bike feels far more different than sort of a spec sheet or a press release might suggest. So instantly you get on it and it doesn't feel like a sub-litre naked. Some of them feel quite small, some of them feel quite compact. They don't quite, almost feel a little bit sort of toy-like. This feels very substantial. The seat height has actually been raised. It's got a new seat, which is a bit more padded, and it feels like a big bike. If you're a taller rider, you'll feel far more comfortable on one of these than you would on some of its rivals. It's also really comfortable. The riding triangle and the riding position's really roomy. It's a really nice place to be, and the new TFT dash is really nice. The switch gears have been altered slightly, and all of it's really easy and intuitive to get through. It's a really nice interface. It's a really nice system. It's a shame that we didn't get to try the proper sort of turn-by-turn navigation on it today, and it's also a shame that we didn't get to try the voice activated commands, because it's a really interesting system. I know some people are going to hate it, some people might love it, but as a standard dash and standard switch gears, it works really nice. Now, getting onto the bike, the engine, it's so refreshing when you've been riding so many triples and so many parallel twins. It's so refreshing to jump on an inline 4 again. You've got to say, when I first got on it, I was almost sort of left a bit wanting, because it doesn't quite make that really fistful bottom end that you're used to with some of the other engine configurations. Below sort of 4,000, 5,000 RPM, you don't really get too much in terms of go, but when it's sort of singing at the red line, it is a really nice motor. picks up really nicely. It picks up really fruitfully. It doesn't feel like you're really wanting too much more power and too much more torque on the road. The quick shifter, which now comes as standard, is up and down, works really nicely throughout the rev range. The only thing that lets it down for me really in terms of the engine is the throttle pickup. It's a little bit snatchy, it's a little bit aggressive. If you're going through town in full power mode, sitting in second gear, sort of 10, 20, 30 mile an hour, do you know, when you're just going through the villages and that sort of thing, it's just a little bit peaky when you're just initially picking up the throttle. And it's something that you don't quite get so much in other machinery. But what it lacks sort of at the bottom end, it really makes up for at the top end. So whereas a twin or a triple doesn't quite have that sort of real thrust right up to the red line, that's where this really comes alive. And to be honest, when it's ridden a little bit slower, it sort of does feel a little bit lethargic. And when you start to push it on a bit more, that engine really comes into its own. Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, there's been a few sort of subtle chassis tweaks, and they do make a reasonable difference to the ride quality of the bike. When you're running it through town on sort of bumpier or, you know, less than ideal sort of tarmac, it actually feels really nice. It's quite supple. It doesn't feel too aggressive or too stiffly sprung. Now, I sit under 70 kilos, so I'm quite light, and I found that the suspension was actually quite pleasant for me. It's only when you ride it a little bit harder that you find that you do sort of find that it dives quite quickly through the forks. But to be honest, it's not a massive deal, and because they've sharpened up the front a little bit, because they've brought the forks through a little bit, because it's that little bit more rigid, it does turn really nicely. It's actually quite stable. For a middleweight naked, some of them are quite flighty. They can get out of shape a little bit on changes of direction and with a bit of undulation. But the Z900 is just really stable, it's really nice, it's really confidence inspiring to ride. And to be honest, the Dunlop tyres, they can soak up most of what you throw at them as well. They grip relatively nicely in really cold, wet conditions. It's only when you're sort of pushing them really hard where they sort of get to their limit. And to be honest, I wouldn't want to go much faster than that anyway. It's just a really nice sort of calm and sensible package. Now, you're looking at this bike, if this would have been released a year ago, it would be an absolute barnstormer. There is so much machinery for your money. Just a shade over £9,000. This is the standard model. There's also an SE model with an Öhlins wrist shock, upgraded front forks, and that comes in at over £11,000. But the fact that this is now going up against the Hornet gives it a really, really tough ride, because it looks the part, it rides the part. It's a really nice thing. I really like the looks of it. It's got updated styling and it looks aggressive. You know, that green frame, especially in this colour scheme, it's edgy, and to be honest, it's quite appealing. The problem is that it's going up against Honda's aggressive pricing strategy. Now, it depends what you're in the market for. If you're in the market for a sub-litre naked, if, you know, perhaps a reduction in capacity makes you feel more comfortable, if even it helps on insurance costs, this should definitely be something that you should be looking at, especially if you're prone to, you know, enjoying inline fours. If you prefer that over a triple or a parallel twin, it's refreshing and it's really fun and it's really exciting to ride. But it's got really stiff competition for a bike that offers more in capacity, more in power, more in torque. And to be honest, having spoken to Michael Neves after the launch and read his launch review in depth, he's been so excited about that bike because of how it performs. We're going to be doing some group tests coming up, so we're going to be putting them head to head to see how they get on. And to be honest, before I rode this bike, I wasn't convinced I was going to be that excited about it, and it has surpassed my expectations. So as I said, if you're a Kawasaki fan, if you're looking for that sub-litre naked, if you want an inline four, this is a cracking option. So we're going to be putting it head to head with the Hornet and the other sub-litre middleweight nakeds, so make sure you stay tuned on the MCN channel, pick up the paper for the full review, and yeah, we can't wait to ride them back to back and see how this gets on against its rivals, and to see if Kawasaki really have done enough with the Z900 to put it on top in what is one of the most competitive classes in motorcycling today.